Welcome back to Shaggy Games. No, I prefer to call it Talking to Myself Gaming, because that's what I'm doing. Thank you for being here. We return today to my silly 2 Thief, 2 White Mage run of the original Final Fantasy. I don't understand why this is always so loud. I don't know exactly how bad yesterday's was, but I know that I did a little bit of editing, so that's something I can do. It's not something I'm going to do much of. But yeah, it's been a day, and I've got an hour before I stream Hearthstone or comment on Hearthstone with my buddy Magic Shadow. And so, that's on Twitch. Come join us, talk to us. He streams every weekday for an hour, 5 to 6 on Twitch, and I play color commentary and watch him play and try to learn something about Hearthstone, a game I haven't played since he's gonna die, since the first season or whatever. Shit, I done so well. You know what we're gonna do? Because that was dumb of me to let that happen. We're just gonna load my save, because I'm not going through all the rigmarole of, yeah. In fact, I might just let us wipe. Welcome! This is, some of what I was talking about yesterday. This game used to be brutal, and if you didn't watch what I recorded yesterday, I am trying to speed run my way to the Rat Tail, which means that that's going to happen a few times. TPKs is what they call that in D&D, old terminology you've probably not heard, also known as full party wipe, is what we used to call it. Whoops, you don't want to know about my personal life. Oh shoot, what did it? Oh, it tried to flee from me. Okay. And like yesterday, I'm just gonna talk about whatever's on my mind, whatever comes up. I need to. Why didn't it save that? Why didn't it save that? I'm gonna need to set him to not notify me while I'm screen capping. I actually don't care. There's nothing that I have to say in private to my friends that I either haven't already said into a microphone on camera, or that I'm not willing to have said. And Madge is one of the people that I don't use anyone for anything, but Madge is one of the people that I rely on for Oracle. So whether the things he says are repellent to you or not, they're instructive for me. And I don't think Madge should be repellent to you. Speaking of things that are repellent, I walked on the bus this morning to an interesting conversation that could be classified as approaching repellent. I most certainly didn't want to get involved in it. I got on the bus to a mendicant preacher who was convinced that he was a teacher and a mouthpiece for God. And he was saying some suspect stuff. And so some of my work today on YouTube, while I had Wi-Fi access, was about what you're supposed to do, or at least how you're supposed to identify someone who is speaking and claiming to be speaking with the words or for or as the mouth of God, but is saying things that are at minimum suspect. He was telling the bus driver about how he was accused by a teenage girl of sexually harassing her in public, and now, if I caught him right, he was talking about at the Christ table where I eat lunch, And so the scene that he was describing was a scene that I had experienced, sort of. I obviously didn't see him sexually assault anyone, and he claims he didn't sexually assault anyone, but that's neither here nor there. I didn't see the scene, because he said the cops got called and everything, and I didn't see that. But I did see the girl that he was talking about, not the specific girl, but when I walked into Christ's table yesterday, I was confused that I had gone into the wrong place. This is Thursday in real time, in my time. By the time this gets posted tomorrow, or yesterday, might be Sunday. This might not be able to hit the internet until Monday. Do I need to save? Oh, I need to save. Anyway, neither here nor there. I walked in and I thought I must be in the wrong place, because there were moderately, and one of them was very attractive teenage girls sitting at all the tables. And one of the things that I had noticed is that I have seen exactly, and now having eaten there, I don't remember when I started, in fact. I think it may have been on Monday, but it may have been last Friday. So I've eaten there for, let's just say, 6 meals, and today was the first time I saw a child. 20-somethings are rare, and attractive young women in clean clothes are effectively unthinkable in that environment. And so I was looking around and I'm thinking, what the fuck is going on today? Something unusual is happening. Well, what was happening is that those girls were representatives of blank. They weren't there to talk to me, so when I sat down at the table, the girl totally ignored me, and that's fine. They were representatives of something, some organization who was there to take census data and get recommendations for how the city can better provide for their elderly homeless. That's why they weren't interested in me. I code about 25. If this is the first of my videos you're watching, you haven't seen my face yet. So I'm 37 and I look about 25. Some of that is on purpose and some of that is just genetics. Like I had a girl, I used to make this as my standard response, but I once had a girl ask me how I've stayed so young looking, and I said, well, I don't smoke, I don't get stressed out over, well, I don't chain smoke cigarettes, I don't get stressed out over small things, and I've never done crack. And that was not the correct answer. I guess she found that highly offensive. But the things that dry out, and I stay out of the sun. I mean, if you have seen my face, you know that I'm very pale. But even this is almost 3 weeks, day 18 of being homeless. Even spending all this time walking to and fro and being in the sun as an artifact of not having a home. I haven't burned anywhere, and I'm slowly tanning because I keep my skin out of the sun, not just because of sunburn being painful and wrinkles and leathery skin being unattractive. I have no interest in that aspect of it. It's the skin cancer I'm trying to avoid. You understand? I don't want to just suddenly die because my skin was microwaved by the sun. So, I'm listening to this guy talk, and, ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. I need to go back. I'm listening to this guy talk, and I'm listening to him describe a scene that I saw. He says, I'm trying to teach this girl how the city can be better, and I'm trying to teach her about God, and I'm like, okay, well, if she felt harassed by you, if she felt like there was a sexual element to what you're saying, then you're not being forthright and truthful about how you were talking to her. You probably started talking about how they could make women sexually available to homeless elderly men or something to that effect, and that's why you have to suddenly make it all about how God told you to say it. And then he goes on to say that he's been diagnosed as schizoaffective and bipolar. And so he's exactly what I was reading about, because I was standing there at the bus stop reading it from Ezekiel, and Ezekiel is talking about false prophets, and he's talking about men and women. He has sections for both, who, as he describes it, whitewash the walls of the city and put prophecies up in their names and claim it's in the name of God. Well, that sounds a lot to me like the apocryphal or pseudepigraphical scripture tradition, that you take a blank scroll and add words to it in somebody else's name so that you have instant authority and instantly you get to sell books. It sounds like the exact same practice. And so I'm just listening to him talk, and I don't say anything. I'm just thinking, okay, well, this is what Ezekiel is talking about when he says that God is mad about people speaking from their hearts and saying, "Thus said the word," or "Thus said God," right? God is tired of people speaking from their hearts, observing the world around them, making conclusions about the world around them in their own hearts and minds, and then saying that God has an opinion about it. God says he's sick and tired of people doing that, and for that, he's going to only leave 10 or fewer % of the planet's population alive. Every generation, there's going to come some disaster until we stop doing that shit. And that's what did happen. And now you could say, well, it was retrodicted. And it's like, or the core components of Ezekiel were written by someone who did in fact have a vision granted to him from beyond. Somebody who did in fact climb Jacob's ladder, so to speak, into the upper heavens and was able to see the cosmos, the entirety of the infinitely expanding universe, all at once, to see the past, the future, the cycle of time, everything, all at once, and return unscathed. And it's possible to do that. And Ezekiel doesn't describe the process by which he does that, but if you read that book, that is what Ezekiel describes having done. That book is written very much in the same language as the Poimandres, and the Poimander, the Poimandres, is explicitly not an astral projection, but a remote viewing of everything, all of time, all at once, all of the universe, all at once. And it's boggling unless you have a guide. And luckily, the guides that Ezekiel makes it very clear, both of them make it very clear, the guides that take them through all of this are the same being. So the guide who takes the two of them through this is the same being, and that being is the being which is above the mind of the universe. So the mind of the universe is Atum, or Amun, right? Or Atun, or Yahweh, right? This is the mind of the universe. And there's a being, that mind is also housed within, that is nested within a greater sphere of intelligence, of intellect, of being, because there's something outside the firmament of the ever-expanding universe. Have you ever thought about that? There's a border to the universe. So there has to be something that the universe is expanding into, and that something is nothing, and that nothing is God. It is the greatest gap of all. What's beyond the beyond? is the greatest gap of them all. And the idea that you are most ignorant of the things most adjacent to you is nonsense. That's nonsense. Familiarity breeds contempt. You are most likely to want to destroy the things that are adjacent to you. This is why God makes it very, very clear that you can't recognize him in prophets from your community. It's impossible. This is why and I'm really glad that I attended a Methodist church, because this is why the Methodists have rotating, this is why the Wesleyan system of rotating ministers works. Because the minister can't get comfortable enough to abuse his power. No minister can be born to it. If you've ever watched that movie, I believe it's called The Last Exorcist. The main character, the exorcist, is born to the job of exorcist, and because of that, he doesn't believe devoutly, and he puts a family's life in danger. It's very real to the text of the Bible, and that's how Eli Roth was a producer. That's how you can tell that so many movie writers are culturally Jewish. I'm not going to say they're religiously Jewish, because that gets wrapped up in anti-Semitism, but they're decidedly culturally Jewish. The difference in being culturally Jewish and culturally Christian is that cultural Christians aren't afraid of God. They think God loves them and is a caring father of a daughter, and that all human beings are the daughter of God, because God and Ezekiel refers to the kingdom of Islam, the kingdom of Israel as a daughter, and Jerusalem as his daughter, and that he's going. But the thing is, he doesn't protect her. He does awful things to her. He allows terrible things to happen to his daughter Israel, because she embarrassed the family name. And so Christians get the relationship with God wrong immediately by thinking of individual Christians, male and female, as helpless daughters, female sheep, in fact. And the Jewish get it wrong, in my opinion, by focusing too much on the terror, the fear of God, the suffering and the passion and the anguish, which is being Jewish. I think that gets it wrong on its face as well. So take a breath, Vinny. You're getting manic. I'm allowed to call myself Vinny because I don't like it. Please don't do that. I won't like you. I will get instantly annoyed with you, and then you will be instantly disappointed because you think you're trying to be my friend. Please don't. Let's just skip all of that. Let's skip over all of that. Don't insult me. Don't insult me to be my friend. It will not in your first interaction. It will annoy me, and it's a thing that the internet thinks they get to use, the insulty friend insult. Why is this not sticking on skip? Maybe I'm turning it off. I'm not. I need to. This guy goes on to talk about the Bible. And so now I'm reading the Bible. I'm actually sitting on the bus while he's talking, reading the Bible. I am reading the book of Ezekiel as he is talking. True facts. In fact, I'm holding it up so that the bus driver can see it in the rearview mirror in case he decides to turn around and actually take into account that there are other people on the bus who might not want to hear his half-hour ramble. Okay, fine, you're having a great experience with a female, but she's not paying attention to you. This is not the experience that you want. And so what that also tells me that this guy is suspect in that way. This guy is the kind of guy who's going to talk a female's ear off, thinking he's going to get sex, because he kept talking about his clothes and his status in society. And that's not good. And so anyway, I'm reading the Bible, and then he goes on to talk about how you don't need the Bible, and that you shouldn't read the Bible. In fact, he goes on to say that the Bible is going to twist your head around and get you mind-fucked because it's inconsistent in its messaging, and if you have to be left on your own to think about it, you're just going to be paralyzed with indecision. That's called choice paralysis. And so his idea of the Bible is a book that gives its readers choice paralysis, because he believes that you have choices, that you have choices about what these passages mean and which passages you should cherry pick to prove your point when people are talking to you. And you could tell that she wasn't into it, so he changes his tack immediately and starts talking about how, well, she doesn't need the Bible because there are people that are walking Bibles, that have read the Bible so many times front to back that they're walking Bibles. They've memorized the Bible, and when they speak, they can just draw Scripture out. So you don't need to have read the Bible. And this is a quote. He says, and I don't know why you would even bother to read the Bible. He says, I don't know why you would even bother. It only takes about 6 months to a year to finish it, and you only need to read it once. And then he goes, yeah, so I've read it as many times as I needed to go on my ministry. And I'm like, oh, okay. So now he's going to explain how his ministry began, because this is what actual unhealthy minds do when they tell stories, is they ramble on and they change their important points of the story. They change their pivot points in the story and what they repeat, what they say, and what they want you to remember, how they want you to remember them based on how you're reacting to what they're saying. And so now, because he's a bad storyteller, and because he's not actually any of the things that he says he's been diagnosed with, because he said that he was diagnosed with those things by his employers, not by a doctor. So your employer is not allowed to diagnose you psychologically. If your employer is diagnosing you psychologically, what they are doing is harming you mentally so that you will leave. That's called toxic work environment. And so yeah, he's traumatized by a toxic work environment, and he goes on to say that God called him to go minister in some city that was 5,000 miles away. And I'm like, oh, I recognize this story. Okay, so in his schizoid relationship with God, and I most certainly do not have a schizoid relationship with God. I'm very careful about this. I don't hear voices. He's claiming to hear voices. He's claiming to hear the God speaking to him as a voice. That's something that you will never hear me claim, because that's never happened to me. What is happening is that he doesn't have enough critical self-awareness. That's called self-consciousness. He is not self-conscientious enough, right, to know the difference in his internal monologue and his impulse monologue. Your impulse monologue is like, I was watching Calvin and Hobbes, the shorts on YouTube. We're on YouTube. I'm allowed to reference YouTube stars, and so they're an Austrian and a German who make fun of American culture, and they're very funny, and they do also make fun of their home cultures, and I like that very much. If you're going to make fun of one place that you live, make fun of the place that you came from in the same context, please. Even if you like the place you came from better. That's called being a good colonist. Anyway, and comedians are allowed to talk shit about the place they are in comparison with the place they're from, because fools are allowed to insist that the place they've moved to and are now forced to remain in should be better. They're allowed to do that. They're actually protected by the law in the United States, and they have been protected by the law everywhere in history. This is why liberals, Democrats in the United States, are coming after stand-up comedy. In fact, this is why stand-up comedy has gotten so much better the last 4 years. Comedy clubs are being oppositionally defiant, and they're allowing a lot more on, and a lot bigger clubs. They're allowing a lot more crowd work, and crowd work was something that had become faux pas during politeness culture, let's call it forced politeness culture. And so he's explaining to her that he was called to go 5,000 miles away to minister and prophesy in some city. I didn't catch the city. And he goes, well, I didn't have any way to get there, and I asked God, well, how am I supposed to get there? Am I just supposed to walk? And God says, go. And so I started walking, and I made it. You know how far I made it? I made it 50 miles away, and it turns out that's where God wanted me. And it's like, nope. I almost stood up and walked up to the seat next to him and asked him if he had read the book of Job. But I knew the answer, because he's already said, I've read the Bible enough. And so what he's not doing is book oracle. He's not double checking himself based on the signs that are available to him. And Book Oracle is an efficacious and extremely useful way to do self-criticism. You open the book and you find anything that God is telling you not to do, and it turns out most passages in the Bible are saying the same thing. Don't be whatever you are. Be better. Do better. Reach higher. Try harder. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think the Bible is right. I think that's consistently been my message. And then I started reading the Bible and I started finding, oh, okay, yeah, this is consistently the message that I've been telling people my whole life, even when I was doing it from a place of radical secularism, radical corporate secularism even. And so I feel a particular kind of comfort knowing that he was wrong. And maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should stop and I should ask myself whether I'm the same kind of person. But if I'm going to proselytize and if I'm going to deign to teach, I'm not going to do it to the unwilling, even once, and I'm most certainly not going to do it to the uninformed, unable to consent. You understand? By coming here and clicking in these and taking the time to listen to them all the way through, you understand that you are consenting, and that most of the things I say, I preface enough to give you the information. I'm feeding you quality information, which makes you an informed consenter. I'm feeding you quality information, and if you stay, you're consenting to receive the information. That is the healthy way to minister and proselytize and teach. I don't know that I'm especially trying to minister or proselytize. I am, I suppose, in a position where I am teaching, but it isn't exactly where I want to be. I want to be training, you understand. I want to be spotting you more than supplementing your education. I would rather discuss what you think you know and how everything you've been taught is subtly wrong one-on-one, because I think it's rude to approach someone in public. And try to change them in any way. I do think that's rude, especially in front of other people. Okay, so last time, if you haven't watched last time, I said that what I wanted to do was I want to play an evasion build. I want to play an evasion and haste build because I've always wanted to do this, and it's so RNG difficult that I never have. But the super classes, the hero classes in this game, are a pretty big deal. They're a lot more powerful, and they as they level up, they develop a lot more quickly, and they get the ninja gets black magic spells, not very good ones, but I might be able to drop a little bit of weak AoE on the board, which might be enough to burn big groups like this quickly. That's how I like to play, and so whatever. It worked. Because in this game, the evasion isn't just hit or miss. Evasion actually can reduce the number of hits they get. So, I don't know if you were watching, but you can get multiple hits, and those are based on your hit rate, your speed, and other things. I think it's your speed and your hit rate. It might just be speed is your hit rate, is the way it works. But, and it might not even be speed. It might be called dexterity or something. Agility, because this is based in D&D, either first or second edition. So either D&D or advanced D&D. The point is that adding evasion to your characters makes it so that even if they hit you, they're going to hit you fewer times. They're going to land fewer hits. So it has a stacking effect with protect. So once I have enough mana and once I'm far enough behind the 8-ball because I'm speed running my way to the rat tail, I'm going to go into these dungeons and speed run my way to the boss as I remember where the boss is in the dungeon. Because not all of them is it straightforward. Sometimes these dungeons are well crafted. I'll be able to just throw out buffs and basically take no damage and then whittle these bosses down with crits and huge amounts of hits. And I think it'll be pretty spectacular, and I don't know that very many people play with this build. But you see how my thieves, I think, rogue, whatever, are starting to take not very much damage. They were taking a lot of damage because they're wearing light armor, but I've got their evasion up high enough now just by leveling them up. I haven't done anything special, but their evasion is high enough now that they get to ignore a lot of the damage that's on the board. So that the AI has to throw its damage at the characters in my party that it normally wouldn't. And so, this is the end of this episode, actually. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get to this next town, and what I want to do is I want to do a boss. I would like to do a boss per play session. And if I'm doing it right, I should be able to do a boss every 20 minutes, maybe every 30 minutes, because I'm not trying to stand around and grind. I'm trying to grind exactly enough to get the spells and the armor that I need, and then go in, because I have so much heals, go in bare bones as far as items. I'm not trying to carry a bunch of Phoenix Downs and tents and stuff like that. I'm trying to be as bare bones as possible. Get there as fast as I can. And I think I have the path memorized. I think I know how to do it quickly, because I've been trying to do this for years, and I get bored because I'll get about halfway through and I think, you know what, if you're going to do something this goal oriented, you should really do it when you're capturing it for other humans, so that when you achieve it, even one person can be like, hey, great job, you achieved that personal goal. And then maybe along the way you can make it interesting, like opening your recording, it's not a stream, but opening your recording with a TPK because you weren't paying attention, because you were trying to make sure that you said hello to anybody new on your second episode. So I feel like I said what I wanted to say. That conversation has been on my mind. I've been studying all week false prophets, because I need to know. I need to know whether I'm wasting your time with false prophecy. Whether I'm speaking from my belly, or whether I'm speaking from the mind of the universe. Whether I've tapped into the mind of the universe, or whether my individual suffering is so great I'm just taking it out on the world to feel vindicated and self-justified. And I can tell by watching that man and listening to him and hearing the things that he cared about and that he had done with his life. He has adult daughters, one 31 and the other, he had to do the math, nearly 27. But he didn't describe them being in his life, and he didn't describe having a great relationship with them, which means that this guy's been a sex deviant for a while. And so that means that girl, she picked up on something. And I've been telling you, if you feel an emotional reaction, a body reaction, if you feel subtly like something's wrong, something is wrong. Experience is the only way for you to know what it is. And so what that means is that we still, even as adults, even as sophisticated 21st century adults with the internet and all of our fancy liberal education, still need our grandparents. We still need these old books. We still need the ancient ways. And you can find a proof of that if you find my commentary on this great lectures course that I'm listening to, the intellect or the intelligence of emotions from a philosophical perspective rather than always trying to lean into a neurological perspective. And of course, he tells us in that first episode that we listened to together that he is going to have to rely on the neurological perspective for some of what he says, because always relying on the pre-Socratics and the post-Socratics and the Socratics and the Platonists and the Aristotelians and the Stoics and the Cynics, and always relying on ancient authors is a dead end at some point. The Bible can only give us so much, right? We can only find so much in the 19th and 18th century writers. We still have to make the future for ourselves. And that future is really at whatever level of abstraction you want to think about it. I have to find a way to talk about nested spheres of reality. I tried drawing it for you. I've made a short to give you an idea, to see if maybe I can get some chatter or some questions going around it. But man, I really need a compass. I need a compass and I need better paper, which means I need about $50 so I can walk down to Hobby Lobby. And then I really need like a cell phone stand so that I can aim my phone down in a manageable way and draw for you so that we can talk about it in this kind of meandering way, but at least you'll have the visual. All right, so I've stood in place for long enough. Thank you for being here. It's very cool of you to show up and to check this out. I know that I'm not one of the fancy streamers. I know what I am, but I think you're pretty cool. All right. Take care of yourself. Remember, kids, eyes open, hands up, and we're going to add another one. Head on a swivel. Don't just look ahead of you, look around. There's a way to think about life that somebody's always got your back, but you're not a soldier. This isn't God's army. This isn't a Lord of Hosts situation. And very likely, even if someone has got your back, you need to make sure that you're swiveling your head around to make sure you've got theirs too. Because we're surrounded by enemies. Surrounded by people who want to hurt us. Even when we trust. Even when we have a good reason to trust. So I'm not telling you to trust. I'm just telling you to keep your eyes open. All right. Shaggy out.